Hey everybody, welcome back.
We're here. Hi, Blaze. Hi, Deb. Deb's waiting for us too.
Hey Deb, hey Blaze. And I'm sure B will be here any minute.
Yeah.
So if you guys are here, I assume that you came to talk about American Horror Story Season 5 Hotel Devil's Night. That is what we are discussing tonight. And we are discussing the actors that the characters that were in the show for this uh, episode, this meal, whatever you want to call it, and we'll be discussing
Party.
party,
Dinner
The
party,
real-
right? Dinner party.
It's a
the
dinner party.
the real life murderers behind these characters, because all of them were based on real life people. Even James March is based on a real life person. So we are going to jump right into this and discuss this with you guys. So if you guys, without further ado, let me just say I'm your beautiful host, Irish Melly, along with the beautiful lady up here, Dewanda.
Hi,
Then
everybody.
we wait, this way.
You're going,
This
yeah. Where are we going? Are you going up or down?
There we go.
There we go.
My finger. The beautiful lady up in the corner up there that my finger won't work to. There we go.
There you go.
Lady Di. And
Hi,
then this
everybody.
way.
Then
Believe it or
Where's
not,
that guy?
it's that guy.
that
That guy. You know, that guy.
guy.
That guy. Everybody's got one.
Yep.
He's on it.
Ours.
So with that being said, we will go ahead and jump right into Devil's Night. Mike, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, we'll touch on March really quick just because he's the one that hosts this. Basically once a year.
Hey,
James-
B.
What's up, B?
What's up, B?
James Patrick March.
Oh, and
hosts
before
it.
we start, is this like everybody's favorite episode of American Horror Story ever?
Yeah.
No, but of the season, sure.
Of the season, yeah.
I mean, it
Maybe
might
I
be
should
my
do this
favorite.
Devil's
period.
Night.
Irish Kruger Melly.
I figured it's Devil's Night. We might as well channel a killer.
It is the one that I appreciate the most about using real life characters because I don't think there's anything that was sugar coated about any of these people's lives.
No.
So it was almost like a documentary on these people. So I really respected that.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, so what is Devil's Night? Devil's Night March, what we talked about last episode. He brings on, he invites serial killers that he has met in the past and that he has trained or mentored in some way or fashion to be a serial killer, leading up to a bigger event that we'll talk about in our last episode, looking for the ultimate serial killer. Each one of these guys have failed him in some way in their own right, but he still invites them back because they were all like students of his for once a year on Halloween. Remember, in American Horror Story lore, is this Halloween?
No,
No,
it's
Devil's Night is supposed to be the night before Halloween.
This is supposed to be the night
Yeah.
before Halloween, and technically this is March's birthday.
All Hallows
Doesn't make
Eve.
sense then, because then how were the
Because
kids able to walk? Oh, they
one
didn't
of
die in the
them-
hotel.
One of them comes to check in and says, Halloween's got nothing. It's the day before.
Yeah.
That's right. 'Cause They didn't
When
die
they-
in the hotel, so they're not left to the sacred ground. So I guess they can still wander.
Well,
Right.
or they come on the 30th at midnight when it really is the 31st, but it's not
then-
the night of Halloween.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because technically that is the day that March was born. So they're
Okay.
celebrating his birthday is what they're doing.
So they're done by the time their trick-or-treaters
But did
are
we ever
out. They're already
get-
assembled.
Did we ever get a clarification on any of the seasons in American Horror Story lore that other spirits that aren't locked into one of these portal places can wander at any time during the year?
No.
No,
it's
we
always
just-
been from
we
murder
know
houses
Murder
on
House.
Halloween.
We just know Murder House.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Okay, well,
Which, could you guys imagine if people were trapped, just a side note, trapped dead at the asylum? That'd be nuts. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So back to Devil's Night.
So he brings them all there. We will learn later, the bigger plot that he's had over the years. But what we start to see is in the episode, we start to see a few of them starting to show up. And then we learn, wait a minute, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so. Holy shit. And then the dinner party unfolds. This is all for another character called John. And John's going to have a big story. We're not going to explain John's story yet, but we will go into John's story later. Just know that this event is for a bigger cause.
Mhm.
And the first to show up to the party is
The man who tormented me for 2 years
In
personally.
real life, you people, real life, not just on the
Real
show.
life.
In
Yep.
real life,
that's our generation.
Mhm.
our generation is most of these people, but for me personally, Richard Ramirez showed up. Richard Ramirez was a serial killer who terrorized people in Los Angeles and up in Northern California in the summer of 1984 until August 85. So it was like over a whole year that he was active. And he actually murdered someone about 4 blocks from where I lived. I was 22 and 23 years old. The Night Stalker was like Son of Sam. You know, my family back east had Son of Sam.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised he wasn't there. Maybe he's not dead.
I know. I thought about that too. I
Yeah.
thought that was
So-
interesting because he even they mentioned that Charles Manson won't be joining them yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting
Manson wasn't dead yet.
he was born February 29th, so he was a Pisces, in Texas, and he died in
Pisces,
2013.
I've heard, are very cruel when it comes to evil and torture. Not all of them, but like if you have that element.
He just, I mean, you know, we find out as we see the story, and I think that I'm getting it mixed up with 1984 because in 1984 we find out a little bit more why he's so fucked up. So let's not go there because
Let's not go there.
Yeah, that was made up, wasn't it?
And the thing about him is he was a serial killer. He was a rapist. And the biggest thing about him and why it took them so long to find him was most serial killers follow a pattern, right?
Right.
As the other ones that we're going to talk about do. He killed indiscriminately. First, he would kill old people. Then he killed young people. He raped women. He would just jump in a window and bludgeon people. His whole thing was that he didn't discriminate. He wasn't like Son of Sam. All the women that he killed were brunette, and women were dyeing their hair blonde, and they were all between a certain age. They all met a certain criteria.
Right.
And we find out when Richard Ramirez showed up after talking to James, that James, we all know he taught these, and they all kind of, and it would make sense of all of these killers that Ramirez would walk into the Hotel Cortez because he lived in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. He's the only one who's an LA killer. And he told him.
Well, and seeing as the Cortez is based off the Cecil Hotel, and Ramirez actually stayed in the Cecil Hotel.
Exactly. You can
it makes sense. He was going to be the one to be there.
Dahmer's is real. It could be real too because Dahmer
make everything seem very, very possible the way he explains it. But he starts because we're going in. Richard Ramirez shows up first.
Yeah.
And he said, and he pats him on the back. He said, "It took you so long to get caught because you followed my tutelage. I told you, kill anybody, rich, poor, young, old, doesn't matter who they are. You have to kill indiscriminately." Hi, Katie. I sent your thing out the other day.
Hey, Katie. Welcome, hon.
The other thing that was interesting about Richard Ramirez is they didn't have a lot on him. And finally, one of his victims lived and was able to give the police a sketch. And they did put the sketch on the front.
At
least she didn't freeze with her mouth open.
He walked into a convenience store, and again, we see this in a later episode. The people in and he was in East LA, which is a very prominent Hispanic neighborhood in Los Angeles. And they looked at the paper and they looked at him, and a bunch of people ran his ass down.
Yep.
Which we see all very pretty accurately in 1984.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they call the police. So this is this is the thing about him is the community was just like, fuck you. We know who you are. And as soon as someone was able to identify him, they caught him. But he was just so, like most, not apologetic and didn't care.
Like most psychotic sociopaths, where there's no empathy, there's no remorse, they don't feel feelings.
He just wants to party. I think the actor who portrayed him did a really good job.
I like this one. Yeah.
I think that it's really interesting how he dances with Eileen Wuornos. And they do this several times. It shows the Devil's Night because it shows it again at the end. So Katie, just really quick, says, I'm not a huge hotel fan, but this is my favorite episode of the season. I think everybody feels that way.
Everybody feels that way.
So,
what is this saying about all of us, you guys?
This man, my ex-husband at the time, had to go back home to Ohio to see his family, and we'd already booked his trip. So for 6 months while he was here, he went up to he followed James Patrick March's tutelage to the letter. He went up to Northern California after he terrorized. And when he was in LA, he didn't just stay at LA is a huge place. He went from Long Beach to the San Fernando Valley to downtown LA, places that were 45 minutes to an hour away from each other, hours away. And at the time that he was in the San Fernando Valley, which is where I lived in North Hollywood, I slept with a .357 Magnum under my pillow for about a week.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And I believe he died in prison. What year?
He died in prison of liver failure.
Yeah.
And what year was Hotel? 2015?
Yeah.
2000 and was it?
What year was
2022?
Hotel?
Oh, that's where we end, is 2022.
Yeah.
No, where we started. It's, what is it? Covens 2013?
Yeah, 15.
2015.
Yeah.
He died in 2013. So he might have been more of a newish guest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they even
they said, "Oh, this is your
March
first year
about
joining
that.
us?" He said, "No, I was here last year when he went to Liz Taylor."
Yeah.
And he goes up to yeah, I know, right, Katie? Katie's like, Jesus.
And then he says, I don't need a key.
Yeah.
I won't be needing a key.
Yeah.
Because
So
he goes in through the window and bludgeons the husband and wife to death.
yeah, he, different. He's very much how you think that he probably would be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very unapologetic, very like, what I do is what I do. I mean, I think all the actors in this episode were cast extremely well.
Oh, God, yes.
So
Yeah.
creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kept you were so enthralled. I was.
Yes.
I'm not a serial killer person. I don't follow them. I don't read about them. I don't want to know this shit. This is bad shit.
Well, they're fascinating.
It's fascinating.
It's
Totally
so like the other ones, you guys had to tell me what they did. The only reason I know about Ramirez is because I lived through it.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Just like the Zodiac, my husband is from San Francisco. He lived through the Zodiac.
Yeah.
So
yeah, our next serial killer that walks
our next guest.
Yes.
It's Eileen.
guest is Eileen.
Eileen walks in
Eileen.
for what is, I believe it's 13th. Let me double check. Yeah, it's her 13th Devil's Night when she enters this Devil's Night that we're watching in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to the bar. John speaks with her. He buys her a drink. He tells her she has a great Eileen Wuornos costume. And then, he realizes that she's not joking, that maybe it is really her. And then what does she say? She says he hasn't lived until he's had a roll with a batshit crazy hooker.
Eileen's batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Oh my God! Just
Isn't it long it took me to realize that was Lily?
Right?
I know.
Lily's
I
if
don't
somebody
think I
would've told
realized
you-
it was her till almost the end of the episode.
Yeah. You're trying to figure out, wait, who'd they bring in to play Eileen? Who is that?
Well,
Like,
and I was like,
it's
where's
Lily
Lily? No more Lily, because she wasn't in Freak Show. Well, she was in Freak Show for a tiny bit.
Well, quick cameo, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so great in this one. This is my favorite role.
Yeah. And let's see. So
especially someone who is so beautiful, and just like Charlize Theron, that was her character in Monster.
Well, she's a chameleon. I mean, look at Lily doing Eileen versus Lily in Roanoke as Shelby. I mean, it's just night and day.
Yeah, or even being, Nora Montgomery.
I was gonna say even Nora, Nora versus Shelby. Shelby to me is one of her weakest characters, but that's because I've seen the range she can do with all the other ones. Whereas I don't think she had much to play with and do with Shelby. It was just a regular person.
Well, I think Shelby was supposed to be a weak character.
Yeah, a normal
definitely.
And she was supposed to be a scaredy Shelby.
And plus, she didn't want to do a lot of physical stuff because at the time she was pregnant with her daughter. So
exactly. Which is
and when the way they style her hair and the way she looks in Shelby, if you take an old picture of Jill Clayburgh, her mother, and put it next to her, she looks the most like her mother as Shelby because of her hair and the way that her mannerisms are. It's just freaky.
Yeah,
but we digress.
But we're digressing.
Yes, we're talking about her transformation.
We have a ton of comments. Do you want me to read them, or do you want to go and read them after?
Let's see. Here we go.
Go ahead, Mel.
I'm working on it.
So Mel.
Okay, I can read it. Go ahead, Mel. I can read it. We'll read them when we're done.
Okay, so a little background on Eileen Wuornos. Come on, Eileen.
Come on, Eileen.
I love that.
That's one of my favorite songs.
It's one of my favorites too. It's going to be in my head all day now. Now it's an earworm.
Thanks, P.
Not till you've been with a bunch of drunken Irishmen on New Year's Eve singing that song. I have been.
Oh my goodness, I can only imagine.
But yes, let's explain her character because I love her character.
Yeah. So a little background on Eileen, the real Eileen. You guys remember that basically everything you're shown and told about this character is her real life, is this real person. It's a little altered in the sense that they go to a devil's night after they die, but we don't know what happens when you die, so maybe they do. We don't know. Yep. But it's very accurate with all of the discussions that they have, the comments that she makes, the claims that she makes. Like, it's all very accurate. So a little bit was that Eileen Wuornos was a sex worker who killed 7 men in Florida. All within a 1 year span from 89 to 90, she did this. She was convicted of 6 of the murders, and then she was executed by lethal injection on October 9th, 2002. And I actually remember the day that they held her execution. And I was just I think it was the first one where I was old enough to understand really what was going on. Like, you hear about it in school, but the gravity of knowing someone's life is being taken right now and knowing that this person is happening because of all of the things that they did. And I was about 19 at the time that she was executed and that happened. So it was like the gravity of it. And I had a child already at the time too. So the gravity of it really hit me, just the whole life and death aspect of it. You know what I mean? So I remember it very, very well. It was if your typical, her execution was your typical type of execution where it happens. They have all the cameras outside. They have someone come out and tell them once, she's been declared dead and, what time and all of that. And they'll tell them all of that afterwards. But you'll have also the protesters out there saying, life is worth more. You'll have the people saying that, the death penalty is just horrid and unbelievable. And then you'll have the other people out there. People saying burn, which, they're not saying which, but you know what I mean. And so you have these two groups, and they actually have to then have people out there, security and staff and such out there separating these people, because a lot of fights ensue over these battling ideals, just like you would at any type of protest where you have two groups that have opposite ideas coming together to butt heads. See, I thought I was the baby of the group, Katie. You're not the baby of the group. And that's funny. So I know how old you are because my daughter was 2 at the time it happened. So,
As long as you're over 18.
But like we said, she was portrayed by Lily Rabe. You know, we talked about all of that, and this is the 5th character, as we mentioned, played by Lily Rabe in the American Horror Story series up to that point, up to Hotel. Let's see. And we know, like I said, she meets John at the bar. They end up, you want to have a role with a batshit crazy hooker. and Eileen Wuornos was no pretty lady. I'm sorry. I find beauty in everyone, but she definitely was somebody, not that you would pass by and say, oh, that's a beautiful person.
Well, Liz told John, you're not that drunk, John.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember, Liz said something like, John, you've had too many cocktails. And he's like, I don't care. Or you've had too much to drink. And he's like, I've had so much. I don't care.
I don't care. Exactly. But then she knocks him out in the hall and cuffs him to a chair in her room. Yep. He turns the tables on her and he cuffs her to the bathroom sink. We're playing like a cat and mouse game here, you know what I mean? And then at dinner, she gets out and gets to dinner, and John is there. She apologizes to John, and after that, what happened? Oh, he didn't accept her apology. He wouldn't accept her apology. He was still really pissed off about the whole situation. And that he promises her that she's going to be leaving that hotel in his custody. Under no circumstances is he leaving without her.
Mm. She's like, okay.
Because he realized who she was. And this is where we're kind of going, even if you realize who this woman is, don't you find it odd that she was executed? That was many years before.
But don't forget, they're plowing him full of absinthe.
Yeah. Right.
Because this is kind of a test.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To see if he's ready for something.
Yes, Skank, you have to be more specific. That was a great line. Wait till we get to the hotel nomination.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
That one will be in there for sure.
She was skanky. Oh my god!
Yeah,
like, for a fucking crazy shower.
So then we see her. Then we see her later. Like they're at the party. Like we said, she comes in, the apology thing. But then they're at the party, and like Di had mentioned, she starts dancing with Ramirez. They just having a good old time dancing around, having fun.
And it's interesting. They're dancing to Sweet Jane, which is like a 90s kind of,
Yes.
Another
great. So surreal and odd and just everything all at once is it to see these two dead killers together laughing and colluding and having a good old time, knowing what they've done and who they are.
And I wonder this, because Sweet Jane is done by the Cowboy Junkies. I wonder if that had anything to do with the pick of the song or just the fact
that you have to look at the lyrics. Probably. The lyrics are always really meaningful.
It's actually, it was written by Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground. They redid it.
Yeah, I was going to say Velvet Underground sounded familiar.
Yeah, but Sweet Jane, the one that we know that we heard like in the 90s was by the Cowboy Junkies.
Right.
Just look at the lyrics.
Velvet Underground's version wasn't bad though.
Well, no, Lou Reed wrote the song, and he was Lou Reed. Okay, I will be right back.
We'll be here.
Okay.
So then, and then we see after she's dancing with Ramirez, we see her helping kill a man.
Huh?
She kills a man. She kills a man after dancing with Ramirez and killing a man.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. She had a thing about She did not like men at all, mostly like cops. Just like,
Yeah. And she was a prostitute, like we said. So what she would do is she would get these Johns and have them pick her up. And she was, I mean, we could spend all day talking about Eileen Wuornos. This woman was so complicated, and you feel bad for her. She's one of the few killers you really feel horrible for, and you understand why she became the way she did. Not that it's okay, but you kind of understand why.
She
But
was my cause.
she was born to fail. She was abused left and right. She was unwanted. I mean, I'm not going to get into all those specifics, but I say if you guys want to know more, definitely look it up, because her story, and even if you just want to watch a movie, Charlize Theron, most people know Monster. She did that movie, and oh my God, talk about transformations into Eileen. Oh, because Lily's beautiful, but Charlize is on another level, and like to see her go to that, you were like, wow. So yeah, the name of the movie is Monster, and it's with Charlize Theron. So
Did
if
she win an
you
Oscar for that
guys,
role?
I'm sorry,
Did she win an Oscar?
yes, she
Yeah.
did.
she did. So if she won, I think that film won a couple Oscars that
Yeah.
year.
Mhm.
But if you want to, yeah, go check it out. It's definitely worth a watch. Christina Ricci's in it as well. And she did an amazing job. I really feel like she did. I've always kind of liked her, but not a huge fan of hers. But I think she did really, really well in that movie. So anyway, if you want some more Eileen background, go ahead and rent that movie, watch that movie, stream that movie. I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she went through horrible times, abuse, being beaten, even by the adults and the men in her life. She was beaten down and taken advantage of. And then there were cops, dirty, crooked cops who would arrest her for prostitution or drugs or both. And then they would take advantage of her and then say, well, if you give me what I want, I'll let you go. I'll give you what you want if you give me what I want. And of course, it would be a sexual favor in turn for her freedom, or something similar. And she was raped many times by police officers. She was raped by Johns and things like that. So I mean, she went through a horrible time, and so it all added up and built basically from the time she was born to her hating men.
Yep.
So she just snapped one day, I guess, and she went around Florida, and she within a very quick period killed, maybe not hundreds of people, but that's a lot. That's serial killer
Yeah.
territory. You get more than 5, you're a serial killer.
Mhm.
So yeah. So I mean, that's Eileen in a nutshell. And she didn't do a whole lot at Devil's Night. We see her interaction with John at the bar more than we see an interaction at the actual dinner party.
Eileen
Because
actually,
there's other characters we focus on a little bit
yeah,
more.
the way they utilized Eileen was just interesting. An interesting take was they utilized Eileen as the narrator. Eileen was the one going around the dinner, and she was giving a little bit of background
Well,
on
I think she's the only female we see at the dinner party.
I think it's Lily too.
Right.
So yes. So we get into the room, and now we see a couple more real famous ones that are sitting there. We got John Wayne Gacy and Dahmer are in the room. Two probably incredibly notorious, famous serial killers.
Yeah.
And
they introduce themselves.
Yes. And with Dahmer, what they did with Dahmer was interesting because they didn't give a lot of a progressive story with him. They basically kind of focused on his style of what he was doing. Dahmer has a long. Dahmer was sick. Dahmer was a sick guy.
That's putting it mildly.
He was a monster.
And let's mention, I forgot this part. I'm sorry. When John walks in and Eileen does the apology thing and all of that, and she offers to have John sit by her, that's when March reminds them of their place card settings and that they are to strictly stick to their place card settings.
Yes.
And obviously, we kind of know why with these killers. I mean, there's certain people you don't want around certain people. Certain people aren't allowed to sit with certain people, So, and if you think about it, if we think about it, when we look at the lineup of the table, when they're all sitting, I know the Zodiac is sitting closest to March.
Yes.
So do you feel like March kept the ones he thought were the most dangerous closest to him?
No, because Dahmer was across the table.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Dahmer wasn't violent. It wasn't like scary like that. Dahmer was just sick.
No, I just mean that like would cause a problem if they weren't sitting by someone else,
Where's
where
Ramirez?
maybe March felt he could control the situation should something happen.
I would say the most volatile person in the room would be Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to agree on that one.
Definitely. I don't know. It was pretty close with Gacy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dahmer's history is we could do 3 long specials on Dahmer's history because there's some really
And
sad.
there is plenty of them out there too. If you and just so you guys know, if you guys want more information on any of these serial killers, you can find lots of information out there. I know you, even if you've only heard the name, but you're not sure
Yeah.
their backstory or why they became who they are. There's a lot of really good research out there, and even just docu-series, documentaries, even movies where you can get a lot of good information.
Basically, with Dahmer, he had this abandonment issue. He didn't like being alone, and so because society he put himself in a situation where society always shunned him because he was that type that even in school he was always the weirdo, and that people were like really kind of intimidated and freaked out by him because he was really strange, and he basically he would lure in young boys to like 20-something-year-old men, usually men of color, Asians, Laotians, black guys, and he would try and convince this guy that he had there in the room with him that he was going to be with Dahmer forever and they were going to love each other and be part of his life, and basically he would kill them in whatever method he used a lot of different methods for killing. He did strangulation, he did cut their throats, he did the sickest stuff that he did was he started drilling into their brains while they were alive, and put acid into their brains because he thought that he was going to make the perfect slave or the perfect guy that would never leave him.
And that was his big thing. He wanted someone he could control who would never leave him.
Yep.
Yeah, he wanted that ultimate control. But Dahmer's whole history is so crazy because he started killing. He killed 1 or 2, and then he joins.
Well, he started with animals and such, just as much as regular serial killers do, but he would hide them under his porch.
But his first human death was before the army, and then he joined the army, and then in the army, he raped these 2 guys repetitively for like 17 months in the army until he was finally found, undoable for service and based on alcoholism.
And those guys only recently even came out with their stories.
It was like
just recently, within the last few months.
Was terrorizing them. He's from Ohio, but then he moves to Wisconsin, and when he's in Wisconsin,
Milwaukee,
that's where he does the bulk of his stuff. In
Milwaukee.
He ends up killing like 17 people. And the
all
saddest
boys,
one,
right?
I think, huh?
It was all boys.
All boys for a date.
The youngest one was 14.
Well, this is the saddest one. The 14-year-old's the saddest one because the 14-year-old, he was a Laotian kid, and he escaped.
Yes, that's how he got caught.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. He was caught several.
No, it was the other guy. There was the other guy that he attacked. That's how he got caught.
The Laotian kid. Let's talk about the Laotian kid for a second because this is really, really important because this is fucked up. I mean, so
yes.
Is this kid escaped, drilled, really unconscious, naked, sitting on the porch with these 2 women. Dahmer, and they call the cops. Dahmer comes out there, convinces the cops that this is his boyfriend, and that they've had some sort of dispute, and he'll take him home and take care of him.
And he said that he was drunk too, didn't he? Tell him he was drunk.
Him go with Dahmer. They escorted him and this kid with Dahmer back to his apartment, so that Dahmer could proceed to finish him off to kill him. And there was like 6
and they even looked around his fucking apartment.
Yes, he took them to the apartment.
Yeah,
and then he killed like 6 more people after that.
Yep.
A 14-year-old boy. Well, the one that eventually got caught, there was one that escaped, and he went to the cops. The cops looked him up or whatever, and they ended up investigating the apartment, the smells in the apartment, and all that crazy stuff. Found body parts. They found heads in refrigerators. They found bones. They found decomposing bodies in like vat tanks with acid.
There was penises in the freezer with other body parts.
Crazy stuff.
And he kept this stuff because
he wanted to remember what they looked like. He wanted to keep a part of them with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a necrophiliac. He was having sex with these organs and with these dead people. He was eating them. He was
And then he was eating the organs so that
Yeah.
he could keep them with him forever, he said.
Uh-huh.
It was like a horror show when the cops unearthed all that stuff that was in
Yeah.
there. Well, he goes to prison. They ship him back to Ohio. He goes to prison for life. He didn't get a death sentence. They didn't have a death penalty, but he gets sentenced for life. The prisoners wouldn't even take a monster like that there. They ended up beating him to death, head trauma. And he ended up dying in prison because
No, one guy beat him to death with a broomstick.
Yeah.
And then he was sodomized with that broomstick after he was bashed in, his head was bashed in and he was already dead. Then he was sodomized with the broomstick.
And they said the guy said he got what he deserved because of the young boys.
And the guy who did it also said because he wanted to be famous for killing. He wanted to be famous for killing a serial killer.
And if you watch Dahmer's interviews, there's a lot of footage out there with Dahmer talking. Boy's nuts. I mean, absolutely.
But
this is why they should start with when people abuse animals.
Yep.
It leads to other things. So if they would prosecute these people who hurt animals more, I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, if they would do more intervention when children are younger and they look for the red flags, like you talk years later and say, "Oh, we should have seen it. We should have seen it." Well, look for it now. Look for it on the next one. You know,
children should not be killing pets.
Dahmer should have been institutionalized way back. There's many instances where he was caught and he should have been
hiding bodies in his grandparents' house in the closet. His first one.
Jobs. He kept getting employment. He had several jobs where each and every job he would get in trouble for something because he was so fucking bizarre. And all of those, somebody should have called on him. All of
Jeffrey knows salad.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like he didn't have Bundy. Bundy is not dead. I mean, why wasn't he there? But when they're attractive, they get away with it.
That's true.
Dahmer was not attractive.
Bundy used that to his advantage, and he told everybody.
Gacy wasn't. I thought Dahmer was okay looking.
No, but Gacy had a hidden agenda. So I mean, we'll get to Gacy in a second.
Gacy's a different kind of.
I'm sorry. I don't know who I missed. I apologize.
He had a way to get in with people and be trusted, just as such as a pretty looking person would as well.
These are boys looking at prostitution. These are boys looking to be lured in by an older man. Dahmer would just kind of
and Dahmer took advantage of that. He looked for the ones, like you said, that didn't have family, that their families, like you said, their families disowned them and things like that because they were gay. Because he would meet them at the local club
or bathhouses.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't think they were calling them bathhouses though in the 90s, were they?
I mean, Eileen wasn't like that, but if you look at almost every serial killer from, Manson, they all had some kind of charm, and they were all giving people psychology that they needed. They were all twisted. They knew how to fuck with people.
Mm-hmm.
Typical sociopath.
Yeah, he's definitely
knows how to control the situation and people.
Well, Dahmer was a sociopath and a psychopath. He was a monster.
And we'll see much more of that a couple seasons down the road. But
right.
So in the show, they were just basically used Dahmer to show how he treated his victims with the drilling in the head and because when you talk about Dahmer, that's what you think about, the cannibalism, the craziness, the whatever, and that's how they used him in the show. They really showed how Dahmer was and how strange he was and the way he kept trying to convince people that what he was doing was right, that he wanted them to be with him and just there's a really good movie, low budget movie, but there's a really good movie called Dahmer.
It's a really good one. I love that movie. That's one of the few that's actually so accurate with the details, like from his past life.
That one focuses on that 14-year-old Laotian kid.
Yeah.
Because it's the saddest one, but it's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
Well, and it was like, I'm sure you talked about, what got me was that James presented Dahmer with a gift.
He hasn't said that yet. He was just talking about the real life Dahmer.
Yeah, but Dahmer could have been there if the Hotel Cortez was real, because he said that on his way back home from the army, where he did get discharged for alcoholism, that he had stopped by in LA, and that was the path that Dahmer would have taken. He would have, he had that time. He had the time to travel. So it really could have been possible if you want to use that as a scenario.
But he didn't listen to him.
No, Dahmer was doing his own thing. Yeah, Dahmer was just too far gone. But he believed what he was doing. That's the thing about Dahmer. That's why he's so freaking crazy.
Then at the party, we see that there is a gentleman there who is not a serial killer. Let's explain this.
That's Dahmer's gift. That's Dahmer's present from James.
Pretty boy.
The young boy, young pretty boy, and that's where he gets.
Did you guys notice? Just a side note. I know it's not the same character, but it was very similar looking to the one that Thredson uses for Lana during the conversion therapy. Do you notice they look similar? I don't think so, but they look very similar. And it could be, though, actually, because it would be 3 years later. And so he'd be a little more grown up. So it could be. We'll have to look into that. That's interesting.
I believe that's
Massachusetts, LA.
I do believe I did a little bit of research on that, and that the actor that plays both of them is the same actor. So
yeah, they look the same.
They do, right?
Yeah.
But they're young, pretty boys with long hair. They look, they're pretty.
Just long hair, by the way.
Dahmer did Boys of Color.
Yeah.
So this is interesting that they had this
interesting.
Mostly, not all, but mostly.
No, I think all his victims.
And that was no. There was one or two victims that were, I believe, white. But the thing is his big thing was because he thought those people were poor, didn't have money, people wouldn't miss them, like you said, with everybody else. And he, I remember because I live in the Wisconsin area, not that far from Milwaukee. So I remember when everybody was up in arms in the Black community, especially, and I don't blame them, because he purposely preyed on the Black community with stereotypes and then killed their people, killed their children.
He was arrested in '94, and then all that stuff started coming out, and he was talking. He was giving interviews.
Yeah, he had no problem saying everything that he did. And he said he talked about times when he said he tried to get stopped. He tried to be stopped. He wanted to get caught, and they just didn't. And he even talked about, he almost seemed gloating about when the police came into his apartment and didn't find anything because the smell was still so bad.
That's how they have such a great account of who these people were, because Dahmer was speaking. Dahmer was talking. Yeah.
Right away, like you said, right away he was speaking.
Yep.
So.
Maybe.
And next we have
Gacy.
Gacy's
in the room.
Yes. And so we see Gacy. Well, first we see him just as Gacy, right?
Yes, just as Gacy.
Then he does the clown makeup a little bit later.
Yeah. At the end, when they're getting ready to sacrifice.
Right. Okay. So, so we have John Wayne Gacy. Most of you have probably heard this name before. If you have not, feel free to do a little more research. But John Wayne Gacy was a man who he was a clown. He was and he was a performer. He was a performing clown. He was Pogo the Clown. Mm-hmm. And he did children's parties, family gatherings, you name it, anywhere you'd hire a type of clown. And let me see. I want to tell you.
His clown's name was Pogo. It was Pogo the Clown.
Right. That's what I said.
Wasn't he a contractor too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the 60s, right?
Or he was also known, that's what I was looking for. He was known as Pogo, but he was also known as Patches the Clown sometimes too. Mm-hmm. Local community is a precinct captain and a building contractor. Yeah. So he was a precinct captain at one point, you guys.
Yep.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So, and then, and according to him, this isn't, evidentiary other than what he told them. So that's semi-evidentiary, but you never know with serial killers,
Right.
They like to say and mess with people's minds. So it doesn't mean what you're hearing is always the truth, but sometimes they like to brag and gloat. So sometimes it is. Um, but he claimed that all of his murders were committed inside his ranch house near Norridge, a village in Norwood Park in the metropolitan Chicago area. And all the killers seem to come mostly from the Midwest area. If you guys notice, I don't know if it's because we
Or
don't have
Florida.
ocean.
Florida, yeah.
Well, Florida too, but I'm saying most of them come from the Midwest. So it's like maybe because we don't have ocean here, people just getting crazy. I don't
And then
know.
sometimes they're in Oregon, like where there's no, there's no sun. And then sometimes they're in Florida.
The air gets thinner.
But he was known as the Killer Clown, and he was also a sex offender. He was and not a registered sex offender because we didn't do registries and things back then. Oh, and let me say, John Wayne Gacy was actually born on St. Patrick's Day in 1942, which I didn't even know it was St. Patrick's Day he was born. I knew it was 42. I didn't know it was St. Patrick's Day until just doing this research, and I was like, holy crap, that's my anniversary. But then he died on May 10th, 1994. So there's that. He told police that he would typically lure a victim to his home. He would dupe them into donning handcuffs on themselves somehow. I'm sure he had different tricks and trades of how he would do this. But he would also, one of the big ones that he claimed he did was he would tell them that they were going to do magic tricks, and that it was demonstrating it. You're going to have to get out of the handcuffs and stuff like that. But then he would rape and torture his captives after he had you lock yourself up and then feel guilty because you feel like you put yourself in this situation. He's then going to rape and torture you.
And it was all boys, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was young boys.
Do you think maybe these are people who that they couldn't feel it themselves, so they were guilty? How they see people who are gay as some people think they're bad when they're small.
Well, that's a big part of it. It's shame usually in these killers. They feel their own shame, and they have to outwardly explore that to feel better about themselves inside. It's psychologically screwed up, but that's why if you also look, they tend to have smaller hippocampus, a smaller pituitary gland. These things, tend to go with those type of things where where your impulses are controlled in your brain.
Yeah.
And your pleasure seeking responses in your brain.
Okay. Oh, have you been guys read? We have more comments, I think, on this than I think I've ever seen before.
I know.
I thought Dawn was keeping up with them, but I haven't seen any. So.
Let's see. Katie, except for Minnesota, where we produce legends. There you go.
Yeah.
Jessica Lange, Prince, Bob Dylan.
Yep. Just to name a few. Oh, I'm sure you got a couple serial killers. They're just not maybe as big as these ones.
Yeah.
Everybody's got some, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we have Richard Ramirez, so
So he would then, like I said, he would rape and torture these men or these boys, and then he would asphyxiate them or strangle them to kill them. What was it? 26 victims were buried in the crawl space of his home. 3 others were buried elsewhere on his property, and the last 4 were discarded in the Des Plaines River. So,
and they caught him
did he dispose of bodies elsewhere after his house filled up, or was that just was it like opportune chances of opportunity? You know what I mean?
I think it was after his crawl space was filled.
Crawl space filled up.
Could be.
Yeah.
Because he buried some in his property out in the yard. So,
see, this is why I had that big problem in 1984.
Yeah.
This is a horror show, and these boys' bodies found in his crawl space, and these living relatives of these kids are still alive. There's the thing about these shows, and then when they made such a crass joke about the crawl space of John Wayne Gacy, I was really turned off by that. I was really, really disappointed that Ryan did that. They made such a bad joke about it.
Okay, so
Well, that's how they found him, was because it smelled so bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean, in 1984, they talked about.
Serving
Remember
ice cream.
where they were laughing about John Wayne Gracie's crawl space.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That they,
That's crap.
she wanted to serve ice cream out of the crawl
Ice
space.
cream out
Yeah.
there, yeah, it's just so uncalled for.
Oh,
Um,
I have to go back to that. I'm on hotel.
Yeah.
so Gacy was convicted of the sodomy of a teenage boy in Iowa in 1968, and then he was sentenced to prison for 10 years. He served only 18 months of his 10-year sentence. Okay, in Iowa. And then it says that he first murdered in 1972, and so had he been put in jail, he would not have been to be able to commit his first murder, and then
They would have kept him.
continue.
There's
Now, we
so
don't know
many.
that he wouldn't have when he got out, but
There's
it
so
still
many of
would have
these
been 10 years.
people who
Yep.
they're always right there,
Yep, the
and they
system
don't get
failed.
them. I don't think it's like that as much anymore with the DNA and everything.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Now they have
What was
so
the
much.
last big serial killer we've had?
Dahmer?
Dahmer, I
Was
think.
the last really big one?
Or no, BTK just got caught, remember?
Yeah.
He just got caught, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
So what's Ted Bundy in the 90s?
Bundy was around Dahmer time, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bundy was first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we haven't had one, Steve.
But anyway, we digress.
We're digressing.
So
Yeah, and we're at like almost an
So-
hour.
Yeah, and I slept.
like I said, he first murdered in 1972, and at least 29 subsequent victims were killed, and he divorced his second wife in 1976. The investigation into the disappearance of Des Plaines teenager Robert Pice led to Gacy's arrest on December 21st, 1978. The conviction for 33 murders was the largest number charged to one individual in the United States. Gacy was sentenced to death on March 13th, 1980, on death row at Menard Correctional Center. He spent much of his time painting. Now, and okay, I'm going to get back to that, but he was executed by lethal injection at Stateville Correctional Center on May 10th, 1994. So obviously he very well would have been at Devil's Night timing wise. But now, as for his favorite pastime while in prison was painting. Now, he would paint pictures, self-portraits, as he called them, of him, but in his clown makeup as Pogo the Clown. And these paintings sell for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Have sold for that much. Now they passed a law saying that anyone on death row or in prison is not allowed to profit from their crimes. So he did not get that money. But I know the families were upset, obviously, by the idea that he's even being given credit and being allowed to sell these paintings. And I believe, didn't they create a fund to donate some of the proceeds to the families?
Probably.
Probably.
I believe they did, because the families caused a big uproar, which I don't blame them. I would have too. Because even though money's not going to bring your family member back, but it's the principle that this person should not be profiting, even publicity wise,
Correct.
or being popular, you know what I mean, in pop culture or anything, on the death of these children.
Yep.
So I mean that's basically Gacy. Otherwise, like I said, you guys can go ahead and look up more information on his backstory and what happened and everything. But that's Gacy. And then Gacy comes to the party. He doesn't say and do a whole lot in Devil's Night, kind of like Eileen, but our focus is more on other characters.
Yeah, you get to see the clown makeup. That's big for
Right.
him.
He then eventually puts on the clown makeup right before the end when they're going to do their ceremonial.
Then Sally shows up.
The thing about that's important for American Horror Story that Gacy's there is that's what they based Twisty off of.
Yes, Twisty, and okay, so that was the other thing. That was the other thing I wanted to mention. Thank you. Twisty the Clown, yes, was loosely based on Pogo the Clown, John Wayne Gacy, the murderer. And the meta point, which I've pointed out before when we've talked about when we were talking about Twisty before during pre-show, but the fact that John Carroll Lynch plays Twisty the Clown, which was based on Pogo the Clown, John Wayne Gacy the killer, and then John Carroll Lynch in Hotel plays John Wayne Gacy
Yeah.
the killer. So it's very meta, and I love how Ryan kept it like that. I thought that was really
Yeah,
cool.
and then even in 1984.
And we're about to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole because I'm about to talk about the Zodiac.
Yeah, Debbie just clarified
Well, you see Zodiac
actors. They're two different actors.
Yeah. Now, the Zodiac in Hotel had no speaking at all. All he did was sit there. But we
If
slept.
it was even a boy.
Huh?
Well, in this season, it could have been. We don't know that. That was cult. They identified that.
No, but what I'm saying is, to this day, well, go ahead, Don.
Yeah. So we're still going to give you guys background on the Zodiac Killer, and there's a great movie out there that I think everybody needs to see.
One of the best. One of the best.
Is anybody who hasn't seen it, you really need to see it.
Yeah.
It's called Zodiac. When did it come out? It came out in what, 2007?
Mark Ruffalo, Jake Gyllenhaal. It was a really good movie. Really good movie.
If you want background on
There's
that.
some really good documentaries too that you like, older documentaries that give a lot of more backstory that's not as cinematic as that movie, as a big time Hollywood movie is, that are really good too. I don't know, I can't remember the name of any of them right now, but you can look it up. You'll find some really good stuff out there.
Never caught.
He was never caught.
Zodiac.
But they said that about BTK until recently.
Yeah, he was never caught, and technically the case is still ongoing as we speak right now.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know if he's dead or not. They just kind of assumed he was, and
yeah,
I think it was really interesting how they kind of put him in to Devil's Night.
I like how they did it. They didn't try. They didn't try to answer and say, "Oh no, this is what he really looks like," or "It's really a she," or "It's really a he," or "This is what." It was just, you didn't know.
No, you didn't.
No, they said, "Oh, well, maybe you would have been dead by now."
Put on,
right?
Yeah,
and he
had
and
they
then
didn't start talking about the Zodiac story until Cult. In Cult, that's when they started getting all weird with it.
Yeah, it got all weird during Cult.
Yeah, I don't.
Bring it up again.
I actually did not like that part of Cult at all.
But yeah, the Zodiac Killer was he had like 5 different murders that all took place. Let's see, he murdered 5 known victims in Valencia, Vallejo, Napa County, and San Francisco between the years of December of 1968 and October of 1969.
Yeah, he was a Bay Area guy that just had everybody freaked out, and he was all over the Bay Area. Napa is an hour from San Francisco.
And he was famous for having the newspapers publish ciphers about his killings.
But they still have not deciphered to this day.
Yeah, they still haven't.
Some of the biggest code crackers cannot fully decipher these messages.
That's why he's so fascinating. Is because the ciphers. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And the is so funny. Drink the Kool-Aid.
You would think some computer program.
Yeah,
you would think the computer program would be able to figure those out now.
That's when we get to Cult. We'll get to Jim Jones then.
The reason I brought up John Carroll Lynch is the fact that the main suspect in the case was actually in the movie Zodiac was played by John Carroll Lynch.
Yes. Again, how meta, right?
How ironic is that?
No, it's not ironic. It's meta.
Yeah, it's a total.
No, I'm sure he did it I'm sure Ryan did it,
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's see.
Hey, Cola Coven. How are you?
Wouldn't you think that a computer program would be able to decipher those now?
Well, yeah, you would think by now they would be able to. I mean,
well, and with all the DNA or whatever, you would think they might have, because there's so many cold cases that now they're 20 years later they're finding rapists, they're finding murderers.
Well, they found Jack the Ripper.
Yeah,
they think.
Well, and the San Francisco Police Department marked the case inactive in April of 2004, but reopened it sometime in March of 2007, and it's been open ever since.
So they are looking
So
at.
he could still be alive.
Yeah.
He's not killing anybody now.
No.
But
No, he could still be
but if
alive.
he's this mastermind that we know him to be, and we just talked about sociopaths being masterminds like this, he could have someone out there doing his bidding for him, being sort of like a James Patrick March.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Hey, Guac. Ryan does meta well. Absolutely.
Yes.
If they ever find that, he's
Some
going to be so
meta Ryan.
he is.
Yeah, Blaze, we have to talk about the Kool-Aid when we get to season 7.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to Cult. We'll talk about Jim Jones.
That motherfucker's crazy too.
And then Katie, not Katie, someone had asked me a question way earlier. They wanted to know what my favorite season was specifically. I like them all for different reasons. There's some, I mean, I can watch Covenant Hotel like every night of the week. I can
But your
watch
favorite? Your favorite is?
Do you
My
have
favorite is Covenant Hotel. I mean, it goes between Hotel and Coven.
Hotel and
Because I'm a
Coven.
vampire junkie. But I
Freak
love
show.
Stevie. I'm a
Stevie Nicks.
Huh?
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks. But even more, I like vampires, and I like Matt Bomber, and I like watching his naked butt. I mean,
Don't we
you know,
all? Does anybody have any last words for Devil's Night?
Freak show.
I mean, I like Freak Show. I like what, I mean, there's so many reasons. They're all different.
I like all of them for different reasons.
I don't
like all
know.
mixed up
I mean,
Apocalypse.
Cult is not my favorite.
Apocalypse can fall off. Be gone.
Apocalypse. Well,
We're not going to get
my
into all of this anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Apocalypse better than Cult.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
really?
We need to revisit Cult then. Because Cult is a masterpiece in acting.
It's just too, it's just for me personally. I mean, I like a little escapism. I don't want realism. I
That was
don't
the
want.
horror of it. That was the American Horror Story. That was the horror of it.
I know, and I know he wanted to slap people in
we
the
will
face
be
with
getting
it.
to Cult soon, you guys, and then
Yes,
we'll
we
discuss
will.
it all then. So in the meantime, you guys, we have brought you Devil's Night. These have been your serial killers of the night.
So Katie's is Asylum. Yeah, I loved Asylum. It just, you know, can't like what American, there's like more ones that are more watchable.
Yeah.
Because they're not so heavy. Like I recently I've been watching all of them. I started and I loved them. I loved Murder House. I loved Asylum. I loved Coven. I loved Freak Show. With me it's like Cult and then Roanoke and Asylum are kind of, I don't know. I didn't really get Roanoke at all. And I had just watched Roanoke last week. Okay.
Well, we'll be doing Roanoke soon.
Yeah.
Do you have a wand of the day?
Yes. Remember, we're doing the Celtic calendar wands. These wands that we're going to be doing. There's 13 of them. They're sold at the parks. They're for your birthday or anniversary or whatever. They're by dates. The last one that I did, the last episode, that was the Hawthorne wand, and it was May 13th through June 9th. That was that one. This one is the Ash wand, which is ash wood, and it's just regular, based. And this are dates.
It looks like an old
February 18th.
a
through
bed.
December.
The bed knobs on the bed.
This
is actually based off of the hilt from Dolores Umbridge's wand. They're all previous ones. What they did with these wands when they made them was they took a piece from this one, a piece from this one, and they mixed and matched and put them together to make new and original ones.
And what months does that?
This February 18th through March 17th.
Okay.
So when you go there, you can pick you can pick
Pisces.
it by date. You can be selected by date. You can
The
pick it
Pisces
for your
one.
birthday or whatever. So we'll be going all over all of them. You get to see your own wands for the dates or whatever's important to you.
Cool.
Well, guys,
So
from
this has
all
been
of
awesome. Let's see, we have Katie and Cola Coven. Guac showed up there.
Yeah, we got a lot of people today.
We're so glad you guys
Nick
are all
Harry.
here.
I forgot Naked Harry.
We had Naked
He's
Harry.
holding the wand.
You missed the whole Naked Harry thing.
Oh,
Oh, you missed
sorry,
Naked
I
Harry.
missed it.
He'll be back.
He'll be back, I'm
And
sure.
Crispy and Debbie. I mean, we love all you guys. Thank you so much.
So we love you. We love you for being here.
Yeah, I
We'll see
mean,
you guys in the next one.
Yeah, we will be back soon. Everyone, take care.
so tomorrow, if you're into RuPaul, this season of All Stars is rocking. It's only had one episode.
We will be
It's
on
awesome.
right after the show. We will
As
be
soon as
on
the
right
show
after
is
the show.
over,
We'll be going
come
live.
here. We're going to talk about who got eliminated. I think I know. I mean, it's between two people for me, but we're
yeah,
going to do that.
Until then, we love you. We love you for being here. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Be safe. Be well. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Bye.
And